Welcome to Why Such a Fuss, an exciting new channel dedicated to help individuals and businesses to learn more about data protection in a way that is easy and engaging. I'm Christina from CVG Solutions, and I am a fully qualified data protection professional. I am passionate about educating, empowering, and enabling businesses to thrive. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel and help us to spread the word. Data protection is there for a reason. It protects you, your family, loved ones, customers, employees from coming to harm through the use of personal data. So make sure you click subscribe. Now, get ready to embark on a journey of growth and knowledge as we dive into the world of data protection. Hello and welcome to Why Such a Fuss podcast. So today I'm joined by Laura Shaw, who is a business development manager at Training Progress and in a previous life, a vet surgeon. I know, Laura, that you've been on my podcast before, but I thought for the purpose of the audience, for the benefit of the audience, it would be good for you to reintroduce yourself.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, so my name's Laura Shaw and I am a veterinary surgeon, but I also work for Training Progress, which is a process and training management platform. So it's a way of businesses, in particular veterinary practice, but any business, making sure that they've got a common place for their practice SOPs and protocols and document management, that sort of thing, and integrating that into a training program so the team are all trained consistently according to the business's processes rather than despite them.
Yes, absolutely. So you've raised with me that recently there has been a big debate on social media within the veterinary practice environment about whether or not consent is needed for sending service messages. Would you like to explain a little bit more about this debate as you've been involved in it more directly than me?
Yeah, Christina. I just thought of you. I thought I know somebody who can solve this conundrum. There was sort of a number of people was chatting about. They work for a practice that's been bought by a corporate, and some of their clients had been called by a third party on behalf of that corporate. So a call centre, I guess, asking them reminding them that their vaccines are due. So it's obviously important to make sure that the animals' vaccines and things are up to date, and they'd outsource that to another company. Now, the debate was there were a number of people saying, "Well, I don't think that's compliant with GDPR," and other people were like, "No, it's fine as long as it's helping helping the healthy animals, etc., etc." So I thought I know who can untangle that conundrum and give us a really spot on reply to what we should be doing there. So that's why I called you.
Brilliant. I'm glad, I come to your mind when it comes to GDPR. That's brilliant. So let's unravel this. So we need to distinguish between a service message and a direct marketing message or a promotional kind of marketing message, because different rules apply. So first of all, a service message is telling your customers important information that they need to know as part of their relationship with you. So things like reminding them of an appointment or that a Fluffy is due her flea treatment. So those are service messages. So they do not contain any promotional content.
Okay.
If the same message, however, so to say, Fluffy's due had flea treatment, and by the way, we're also offering 10% discount on dog food. Well, actually, that message is now promotional in nature, and therefore it falls under the category of direct marketing. And so these are different. Then you've got different rules applies. If it's a service message as it is, you do not need consent. Okay, for that. As an organization, the veterinary practice is the data controller. So they will still need to process the the individual personal data, so in this case, the contact details, in a lawful manner. So what that means is that they still need to have a lawful basis for using that data. Okay. So if the practice has a contract in place with the individual, and bearing in mind that the contract can also be verbal, then you can send service messages because it's necessary for the purpose of the contract. Okay. So the key word is necessary for the purpose of the contract. Then you could rely on contractual obligation as the lawful basis for this activity. There is also the legitimate interest lawful basis. So that's an alternative. You could use that. But in order to rely on that legitimate interest, the practice needs to carry out a legitimate interest assessment. That basically, as part of it, it has a balance test that goes to demonstrate that the interest of the organization do not supersede the rights and freedom of the individual. And as you were talking earlier about the capability of training progress as the platform to store value documentation, perfect. It's perfect to store contract, to store legitimate interest assessment, your policies, etc. Obviously, I'm talking from a GDPR perspective. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that as an organization, you have a central repository for all of these. Now, when it comes to direct marketing or messages that are promotional in nature, and a message can be an email, it can be a text like an SMS or even calls, okay? And also think of newsletters, okay? They are also promotional in nature. Then you need consent when you're dealing with an individual, not with a company, but if you're dealing with an individual. You can rely on legitimate interest if the individual has purchased your goods or services or has demonstrated clear interest in your goods and services. So in other words, for example, they've asked for a quote, okay? So again, if you're using legitimate interest as your lawful basis, you still need a legitimate interest assessment to support that claim. So this is the basic of the difference between a service message and a direct marketing message and the different lawful bases and actions that are required.
So that will basically, it depends on the exact message that is being given. So if they're literally saying, Fluffy's due her vaccine, would you like to book that in? That is a service message. But if they say, Fluffy's due her vaccine and it's 10% off this week, does that make it promotional? And therefore they'd have to have...
Yeah, so if there is any promotional element to it, the message, then it's promotional in nature. Okay. So again, you need to think about Fluffy's due for her, for her annual review. Would you like to book an appointment? Again, it depends. If the client, say, for example, is on the pet plan or whatever it's called, and therefore that is a service message. But if you are calling them to actually sell, in order the booking of the appointment is selling, then it's a different scenario. It depends on the purpose behind it.
But they've got sort of presumably legitimate interest because they were there last year and they had their vaccine. So it's okay to rely on that, but as long as you've got the legitimate interest assessment, you'd have to have done that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, so now then you also mentioned that in this debate that you've come across, that the corporate that has purchased the vet practice has outsourced their call center, if you want, to third party. So we have a three-way relationship, so to speak. So this third party, this agent, so they are acting on behalf of the corporate. Mm-hmm. So first of all, in that scenario, the corporate will need to have a data processing agreement in place with the agency that are acting on their behalf. That it's a mandatory requirement, and also they should have done a due diligence on the agent, on the third party prior to signing the contract. Okay, so that's something to decide. But in terms of the lawful basis for contacting the clients or the end users on behalf of the corporate, so we need to understand who is the data controller and who is the data processor in this scenario. So the veterinary practice or the corporate is the data controller, while instead the agent is the data processor. So the obligation of establishing the lawful basis is the data controller, in other words, the corporate. Okay. So if the lawful basis is consent, if that's what they're relying on, then it is the corporate responsibility to obtain consent in the appropriate and to put in place the appropriate processes and procedures to obtain the consent in line with the GDPR criteria. And just for everybody's benefit, for consent to be valid, it needs to be specific, informed, unambiguous, and freely given. So it needs to meet these criteria, these 4 elements, to be valid. Otherwise, it's invalid, and then it means the data is being processed unlawfully. And also it requires an affirmative action from the individual. So this could be a tick in the box, it could be signature, it could be a verbal yes. Okay. So all of this needs to be in place in order for that consent to be valid. And it is the responsibility of the data controller, which in this scenario is the corporate. And again, all of these should be then recorded and stored safely. So to me, having it on a platform like Training Progress makes perfect sense. So the agent is acting on behalf of the corporate, and it depends what sort of engagement the controller has with the agent. If the services that they've negotiated is for the agent to actually say, I'm calling from XYZ, then there's nothing wrong with that. So, as part of what I do, I use associates, for example, and when they are dealing with my clients under the CVG Solutions umbrella, they are, for all intents and purposes, representing my logo, my company, and so they will say, CVG Solutions is how we work, or etc. So they would be saying that. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Have I covered everything?
Yeah, no, that was good. That last point, actually, that was one of the points somebody else sort of raised, was they shouldn't be pretending that they're from this, from whichever corporate it was, and actually, but you're saying actually if they are phoning on their behalf, then that's legitimate because they are on, they're under that umbrella. Yeah. Okay. Really interesting, Christina. Thank you.
So again, it depends. Some organizations say that you are from your own, and you are calling on behalf of. Yeah. So it depends what they've negotiated, but ultimately they are acting on behalf of the data controller. So it's the data controller that has the ultimate responsibility. So it doesn't really matter, obviously, unless the agent that is calling is fictitious, so they're not a real agent, if that makes sense. Yeah, they're pretending to be, then it's different. Then that's fraud, and we're going into criminal activities and also. So, but we're assuming here that it is legitimate.
Yeah.
So yes. I hope that we've covered and clarified this point for any sort of veterinary practice that might sort of be scratching their heads and thinking, oh my God, what do we do? So it's as simple as that. So the data controller is the one that needs to have the right controls in place, the right processes, the right procedures, the right policies, the right training to their team, etc., and ensure that if they are deciding to outsource something or to bring in a third party, that they carry out a due diligence, because it is their responsibility to only engage with third parties that can demonstrate compliance with GDPR. There is an obligation, and also that they have a data processing agreement in place. Again, that's another requirements, obligation that they have. It is all to protect the individuals, really.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, and as you say, I guess sort of just making sure that the veterinary practice involved has got sort of robust sort of processes in place so that they know that when they're gathering data, how to do it and how to discuss that with the client, and actually so that they've got those as written protocols. This is how we do things, and make sure that the whole team are aware of that, and obviously having their GDPR training up to date as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So one of the bigger mistakes that a lot of organizations do is they do one-off GDPR training and then that's it, ticking the box done, when actually it needs to be something that is continuous, that is refreshed on an annual basis. So the whole point of the GDPR is not a tick in the box exercise, something that an organization needs to embrace and bring within the culture of the organization.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Christina.
Excellent, no problem. So Laura, thank you ever so much again for joining us today, for bringing this to my attention. Can you remind the audience how they could get in touch with you should they be wanting to discuss a little bit more about training progress and how I can support them?
Yeah, so the best thing to do would be to either track me down, Laura Shaw, on LinkedIn, or to go to our website, www.training-progress.com, and we'd love to have a chat.
Fantastic. And if you would like to get in touch with me to find out how GDPR applies to you, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just simply search for CVG Solutions, or alternatively email me at info@cvgsolutions.co.uk. Thank you again for listening, and remember to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe.